Today we are going to start getting into some weekly planner layouts. This will be the first of 4 videos, 4 different layouts that we will be creating for weekly planner spreads. Today we're going to be doing some vertical weekly spreads. I'll be showing you how to create a couple of different variations, and then we will also look at a more themed doggy one. Vertical weekly pages are probably one of the most popular, if not the most popular layout in traditional planners. So it's a good one to consider making when you're deciding what type of planner you want to create. These will be some of the more detailed pages that we've done so far in this series. So let's not waste too much time. Let's go ahead and jump right into InDesign and start working. Okay, so of course, per usual, the first thing we need to do is we need to create our new spread. So we're going to come over here to the pages. We are going to click the little plus to create a new spread. We are going to right click over here and rename with parent options, and we are going to call this one, I'm going to call it vertical 1 because I'm going to be showing you 2 different layouts. But of course you can name it whatever you would like to name it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is I want to create a box. So using the rectangle tool over here, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on the page, and then I am going to make this 1.5 wide. And let's do 6.55 high or 6.5 high. I'm going to create a box. Now I want to make this, of course, match everything else in the planner. So I'm going to use our object style that we created in episode 8. If you did not see that, maybe go check out how to create the object style, because I use this in pretty much every single video. But I'm going to come over here to styles. I have it over here on the right hand side. If you don't have it and not seeing it, come up to Windows, come down to styles, and then object styles, or whatever style you're trying to bring up. Okay, so we have this one called boxes. Watch here as it changes when I click on it. Okay, so basically we had created the object style that was half a point, our 70% black, and rounded corners. Okay, so now that we have our box, what I want to do is I want to add some lines in here. I want to have a little section up top that says grateful and then priorities, and gives a spot to list the top 3 priorities of the day. So we're going to do this by creating a table. So we're going to come up here, we're going to say table, create table, and we are going to do this 6 rows by 1 column. You can go ahead and draw this in here. The height doesn't matter as much because we're going to adjust that, but try to make the width the same as the box here. We are going to select this table so that we can make some adjustments. So with your cursor in the table, you can right click, come down to select table to select the entire table, or you can use the shortcut Option Command A or Alt Control A, which is what I will use for the rest of this video. First thing we're going to do is we are going to apply the cell style that we created in episode 5 that turns our tables into lines for us. So I'm going to come over here to cell styles. Again, you would come up to window if you don't have it showing, and then I'm going to click lines to get our lines. Okay, all right, that looks good. Now I want the top to be here, but if I move this up, it's gonna look weird. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get rid of this top line. So with this cell highlighted, we're gonna come up here, make sure only the top line is selected, that the bottom and sides is not. We're gonna change this to a 0-point font to get rid of that line. I want to type in the word grateful up here, and I'm going to need to adjust this font. So 12 points is fine. I want it centered. I'm going to pick the font I've been using throughout this planner, which is Adorn Roman, and I want to make it my 70% black. And so now what I want to do is I want to write priorities in this box, so that I don't have to make all the adjustments to the font that I just did. I'm going to simply copy and then come down here and paste the word, and then we'll just backspace and write priorities. That's just a little quick way I like to do it, rather than having to go back and select the font and color and all of that again. Okay, so we're gonna have to move this up, but actually it looks like it might be a little bit high. It doesn't really look centered in the box. So let's check out what our settings are. So I'm right clicking, I'm going to come to cell options, and I'm going to come to text, and our vertical justification as at top. I want that centered. So let's just change that to centered, and that looks better. It looks more centered. Okay, the last thing I want to do here is I want to just bring this up so that we look centered up there as well. And let's zoom in, because I'll zoom in a little bit here, because I think, yeah, I'm a little over. I have a little bit of a gap there. So I'm going to just resize this box, this table a little bit. So clicked into the table. I'm going to get my little double arrows, and I'm just going to drag it over a little bit. And that worked. We're connected now to the edge. Looks good. Okay. All right, so now we have grateful and a spot for them to write what they're grateful for, and then a spot for their top 3 priorities. And our box here, our vertical box, is done. So I'm going to group all this together by selecting it all and hitting Command G or Control G to group, so that now I can easily copy these. But before I do that, I want to come up here and I want to add a weekday header. So I'm going to create a text box. So come over here to text, the type tool, and I'm just going to drag it out the same width as the box. Let's center it. Let's type it out and just see. What I'm going to do here, even though this is not going to be Wednesday, that's the longest day. So to make sure I have enough room, I'm going to use the longest day of the week, and I'm going to use 30. Let's use 30 because that's usually like the biggest number, like widest. And this way I can make some adjustments to this size to see what I like here. You know, I'm just eyeballing it, whatever looks good to you. I mean, that looks good. Maybe I'm going to change this to my normal font, because sometimes changing the fonts changes the size. See, it looks a little bit bigger now. So let's take it down just a little bit. Okay, so looks like we are going with, of course, my 70% black. That's what I use. Okay, so I have 13-point font with my Adorn Roman, and that looks fine to me. So now what we're going to do is, now that we have this section done, what I want to do is I'm going to bring this up. This is going to be kind of at the top of the page. Okay, so basically now that this is done, or I need to make 3 copies over for the 4 days, to make up the 4 days of the week that are going to be on the right hand side. To make this a little bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and group our heading with the rest of the table. We can always ungroup it when we're done. It just makes it easier moving things around. So again, Command G or Control G to group that together. Now, I'm just going to click, hold, and drag to make the copy. And if you don't remember or didn't watch the previous videos, what we're going to do is hold Option or Alt. That's to make the copy. But see, it can just drag around anywhere. If you hold Shift, it's going to keep it level. So now I'm just going to get it kind of close. And that's our first copy. And now we need 3 more copies. So I'm just going to come up to Edit and Step and repeat 3 times. And it will redo. Oops, I only needed 2 more. Silly me. And it will redo it. And actually, somehow I got that exactly to the edge. I don't know how I did that. It is exactly edge to edge. But if you need to adjust this to keep the even spacing between, select all, select the first one to make it the key object. That's what this blue outline represents. And then you would just come over here to distribute spacing, type in, whatever number to start, and you're going to be spacing it horizontally. And then see where it is, and then make adjustments to the side as you go, the size as you go. But I'm not going to need to do that because I did it perfect. The next thing I want to do is I need 3 on here because there's 7 days of the week. So I'm just going to highlight the first 3. And then I'm going to click, hold, and drag to copy. Same thing. So Alt or Option and Shift, click, hold, and drag over until I'm at my margin there. And that's it. We have our 7 days. We can go in and we can change the days of the week. Here, I'm just going to do that really quick. Okay, before we move on, I really wanted to quickly discuss my days of the week I have set up here. I did discuss this in one of the other videos when we created the monthly calendar. While I do the monthly calendars in a very traditional way, I do like to start my weekday planners with Monday. You will find some people started with Sunday, some people started with Monday. The reason I always start mine with Monday is because I like to have the weekends together here. But this is up to you. You can offer both to your customers if you want. You're just going to have 2 documents and then you give them whatever it is that they're ordering. But I find the most popular and traditional way is keeping the weekend together. And so I want to create a box on the bottom to fill in this space and give it as like an extra space for the customer to do what they want. But I don't just like to leave it empty there because it looks a little too plain to me. So I'm just going to add a box. Again, we're going to use the rectangle tool, and I am just going to draw it to fill in margin to margin. The size isn't going to really matter for me. Once the box is drawn, I'm going to then come back over to our object styles, and I am going to apply the box object style. Now, once that's done, I am just going to click, drag, and hold to copy it over here, line it up, and that's it. Now we have our boxes on the bottom. You can leave these blank. You can fill them with dot grid. You can fill them with grid, whatever you want to do. We're just going to leave them blank for this planner. And now all we need to do, because this is a very simple vertical layout, which is actually what I use all the time. I really prefer to do things this way. It gives you so many different options. But we need to add a mini calendar here, and then we need to add an area for our notes. Let's start with our mini calendar, and we are going to create that like we have in previous videos using a table. So table, create table, and we are going to make this 7 by 7. Okay, I'm going to draw it out about 1.5 wide by 1.7. I mean, that looks good for right now. Okay. So first thing we want to do is let's just get rid of all of these lines because we know we are not going to use these lines. So no lines. So I'm going to have all the lines selected here, and I'm going to say 0. So we are going to have this top row is going to be our weekday headers. So this is personal preference. I do actually, even though I have the weekdays starting Monday, I still keep the mini calendar as a traditional calendar. I just find that's what we're used to looking at, and so that's easier. But again, totally up to you if you want to make these the Monday through Sunday so that it goes with the actual week. That is completely up to you, but I'm just going to stick with the traditional calendar here. So we have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that little dot means that the text is too big to fit in that box. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Again, preference if you want to make it a TH for Thursday with such a small limited space. I tend to not do that. All right, let's see. So we're going to let's do this before we adjust the font because I already brought it down to 8 point, which is pretty small. Did we create a style for this yet? We have the mini calendar months, but I think that those mini calendars that we created in the year at a glance are still going to be bigger than this. So let's go ahead. I think mini calendar headers. So I'm going to start with the mini calendar headers to see where we're at. And now I want to adjust the cell options here because I want to make sure I'm aligned centered. Okay, I'm centered here. Now let's just bring down the font size until all of our letters are showing. There we go. Okay. The other thing you can do, because there's kind of like a lot of space around that you might not need, you can also reduce the, let's go back here to our cell options text. You can reduce these insets a bit if you want also. I'm going to go ahead and leave it the way that it is for now. I think that that's fine. It might look really small on the page, but if I come up here to view, and then actual size, it's going to bring it in. You can see this is basically what the actual size is going to look like when it's printed. You can see that pretty clear. So I think it's fine. Okay, so now we're ready to add in our dates, but first let's go ahead and apply our paragraph style for the dates so that the dates are smaller. You might need to bring this down as well. So let's bring this down to 8. This one was 7. Let's see if the numbers fit in that way. Okay, so Monday is the 1st. Let's go ahead and type our numbers in and then see if we need to adjust. Yep, we're already going to need to adjust something. Okay. All right, so some of our numbers are not fitting. We need to make these even smaller. Oop, yet smaller. And we want them centered. And let's go ahead and check our cell options here and make sure that we are top aligned. We want to be center aligned. And there we go. Zoom in on that for you guys. There we go. I think it looks good. We've got our weekdays. We've got our days of the week. And now the only other thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to add a stroke to separate these. So I'm going to highlight this top weekday column. I only want a stroke on the top and the bottom. So let's make sure we only have the top and bottom lines selected. So let's deselect our vertical lines. So we just have our horizontal lines selected. I'm going to choose 1 point. And I'm going to pick one of our colors that we had created in a previous video, our color swatches. Let's go with peach because that's, well, at the top. And there we go. Okay, cute. Now the only thing left to do is to create the month. Let's go ahead. Let's turn this back on. Let's move this up. And let's create a text box above here for our month. We are going to say January. Let's just do that. And let's say our mini calendar month. Does that work? Okay, that works. Beautiful. Okay. So that's it. Our little mini calendar is done. We only have one thing left to do, and that is to add lines down here. And of course, we are going to create a table. So come up to table, create table. We are doing, let's start with about 20 lines. We only need one column. So 20 rows, one column. And let's draw this about the same width as the calendar, and we'll just bring it down here. Okay, so we want to select the entire table, and we want to come over to our cell styles, and we want to choose our lines. And oops, sorry, let's select that again. And let's make this 7mm lines. That's what I like to use. Use what your preference is. So exactly 7mm. Alrighty. And let's see what we're working with. And if there's numbers here, this line If there's a month where the numbers are here, then this line is going to be in the way. So let's go ahead and let's just get, I can move it down, but let's just get rid of the top stroke. That's the easiest thing to do. And there we go. We have our lines and our mini calendar, and we are done with this vertical layout. It's a pretty simple layout, a lot of copy and pasting, but sometimes simple is really good. You know, a lot of times people like to use stickers and pens and everything else, and they want to create their own planner. Everybody has different scheduling and needs, so sometimes simpler is better. Let's go ahead and let's create a second version of this vertical. We're going to come over here and click the plus. Let's rename. I'm just going to name it vertical 2. Hit OK. Okay, so I am going to change this up a bit. However, I don't think that we need to redo the calendar and the lines. I'm going to keep that pretty much the same. I might just adjust how many lines there are. So what I'm going to do is come to vertical 1. We're going to select our calendar, our header, and our lines. We're going to hit Command C or Control C to copy. We are going to come down to our new vertical 2, and I'm going to edit, paste in place, which will paste it in the exact same place it was in vertical 1. Okay, so now let's jump in. I'm going to create this. Is going to look a little bit different. Okay, so next what I'm going to want to do is we're going to create some tables because I want to have some checklists up top. We're going to have a this week and a next week checklist section. So to do this, we're going to come up to table. We're going to say create table. We're going to do 4 rows, 1 column, and then we are going to draw this. The height doesn't really matter. We're going to adjust that in the middle and in a minute, but let's make it about 2 inches wide. Okay, so now we're going to select the entire table, right? So again, Command Option A, Control Alt A, and we are going to apply our cell style lines, and then we are going to adjust our height. Right click, Cell Options, Rows and Columns, and I'm going to make this 7 millimeters. All right, now we have our lines here. What I want to do looks like we need to make this box a little bigger. This little plus that you saw over there, this little plus here indicates that there is something not showing. So we just need to make our frame a little bit bigger and then we'll see it. Okay. All right. So I want to add some circles in here. As check boxes. You can create boxes like squares, you can create stars, you can use whatever you want as a checkbox, but we're going to go with a circle today. I want to show this because I don't believe I've mentioned it before, but the last thing we had made was a square over here. Whenever you see these little arrows in the corner, that indicates that there are more tools within there. And so to access those tools, all you need to do is click and hold until that box pops up. And then you can simply just come over and select the tool that you want to use. You can click, hold, and drag a little circle, or if you know the exact size that you want, you can go ahead and just simply click, and then you can type in the size that you would like. This is the size I'm going with for circle, 0.1845. If you want it to be a perfectly round circle, then these need to be the same number. Click OK. All right, so now for this circle, what I would like to do is I would like to change the stroke. So I want to make it a little thinner, 0.75. I'm going to make it our 70% black. Now, with this still selected, we want to copy our circle. So Command C or Control C to copy. I'm going to come over here into our box and I'm going to Control V or Command V to paste. Now, this little red dot here indicates that there is something in here that is too big to show. So I can adjust the size of this and redo it, or I can adjust the size of the table. I think that this would be pretty close. You can also change the insets to make it closer to the lines. That looks pretty close, so I'm just going to go ahead, select the table, and I am just going to resize it a little bit. So, you know, if you're dragging one line, It's only going to adjust one. If you hit shift, it'll adjust all of them. So I'm just going to adjust them until that little, there we go. So I didn't have to adjust it very much, so I think that that's fine. But that's up to you. If you want to keep it an exact size, maybe just make the circle a little smaller. I want to make sure this is centered vertically, which it looks like it is, but let's just double check. Cell options, text. Oh, nope, it's aligned to top. So let's align it to center. It's a very small adjustment. You really wouldn't notice the difference. And actually, I made a little oopsie because I didn't want to put that in the top. That's for the header. So I'm going to delete that and I'm going to paste it here. Paste, paste. Okay. So now we have our 3 little lines. What I want to do is I want to add a header. I want to add the header that says this week. So I'm going to highlight this and get rid of that top line. I don't really want that there. So with only this top line selected, deselect all the others if they are selected. And I'm just going to say 0. Okay, now that's looking a little more like what I want. So what I want to do here with this top row is I want to turn this into a header. So I want to write this week. I want to create a paragraph style that is going to be for section headers. So just like we made our page headers, which are the same on the top of every page that has a page header, the section headers will be a little bit smaller and a different font. But this way I can keep it consistent throughout the planner whenever I do have a header I want to use. So I'm going to write this week. I'm going to, and I've already adjusted this a little bit, but I'm going to make this the font that I've used over here. I'm going to make it 18. It's a little bit bigger, and I'm going to go ahead and change this to 70% black. And now I want to come over here and I want to create a paragraph style from this. I'm going to go ahead and hit plus, and then I'm going to rename this one section headers. And I'm going to hit OK. So let's back up a little bit. Let's see what this looks like. And I think that looks pretty good. I am going to move this over just a little bit, but I'm going to duplicate this now so that I can create also a checklist for next week. So I'm going to hold Option or Alt and Shift, click, hold, and drag over to make a copy. Let's move all of this over so it's a little more centered. Okay. And then all I need to do is just change this to say next week. That's it. And now we have our little check boxes at the top of the page. I want to, how did I have these lined up? I'm going to move these up a little bit. The top there. Okay. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to add some similar sections over to the right. So I'm going to add a top priority section. So it's going to be the same top 3. So all I'm going to do is copy this over by click holding Option and Shift and dragging over. Okay. And now here I want to create a habits one. And this one is going to be a little bit different. We're going to have to make some adjustments here to our little chart. So I'm going to start by click holding and dragging to copy over. So for now, I'm just going to take this text out to make things a little bit easier because we're going to need to add some extra columns because I'm going to create a habit. So we want 7 columns of these check boxes, and then we want another column for the lines for writing the actual habit in. So to do this, I'm going to highlight this column and I'm going to insert a new column, but we're just going to do 1 for right now because it's going to insert a new one the same size. So we just want to insert 1 to the right. Okay. Now what I want to do is I want to copy and paste these circles. So I'm going to highlight all of them. I'm going to Command C and I am going to, or Control C, and then I'm going to come over here and oops. And I'm going to, if I have 3 highlighted that I'm copying, you have to highlight 3 to copy them. It's, if you just highlight 1, it's not going to work properly. So highlight everything you want to copy, the number of them that you want to copy, and then when you're copying, you highlight the same number. So now I'm going to hit Control V. So now we have that over here. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete these because we don't need those circles. This is going to be where we have our lines. So let me zoom in a little bit here so you can see this more easily. What we need to do now is we need to adjust the size of this box. We just need it to be just big enough to fit those circles in. So click, hold, and drag on the side to bring it in and get it close, about even. There we go. So now we can go ahead and we can copy, we can insert more columns. It's going to insert them the exact same size. So highlight this, by clicking, when you see the little arrow at the top, just click to highlight, right click, insert columns, and then we're going to insert 6 more columns to the right, and then we're going to click OK. Unfortunately, it doesn't copy all of the circles, so we're going to have to do like we did before, and we're just going to copy them in. It doesn't take too long, fairly simple. And actually somehow that made it pretty close to the exact size. So we're not even going to adjust the size of the lines here. But if you wanted to, you can just, if you wanted to adjust the lines, to adjust the whole thing, you would just click, hold, and drag. No shift needed, but that looks pretty good. Now we want to add our title up here, but we want it to be centered over the whole thing. So what we're going to have to do is merge all these cells, and that's why I just went ahead and deleted it before. But let's go ahead. You highlight them all or highlight the whole row, right click and hit merge cells. Okay, now we can go ahead and we can write habits in here and it will be centered. And now I just want to go over here and change this text that I didn't do before, and I'm going to say top priorities. That's what I wanted it to say there, and that's it. Now we have our cute little checklists. We have this week, next week, top priorities, and habits. We don't need this anymore, so we can go ahead and delete that. All right, and now we are ready to add in our vertical sections because, of course, this is a vertical planner. This should be pretty quick and easy. So we are just going to create a table, and we are going to make this table 3 rows and 1 column. Click OK, and I'm going to drag this out to be about 1.5 wide and 6.5 high. That's close enough. You can always adjust it pretty easily afterwards. I'm going to bring it all the way down to the bottom margin here. And I want to add the weekday title at the top, but let's go ahead and let's copy and paste these over so we can make sure we have the right width that we want before we go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click on our table, holding Option and Shift. I'm going to click, hold, and drag it over. I just need like a small little gap, nothing too crazy. And then I'm going to copy both of these. I'm going to do the same, just try to get it fairly close. And that looks good. I have a little more of a gap here. I'm going to just eyeball it and adjust it, but you can absolutely use the distribute if that's easier. Let me show you that way if you want it to be more exact. So highlight all of these, click the first one to make it the key object. And where's my, oh, I had to scroll down here. So we're going to come to our line box. And we are going to want to distribute spacing. Let's go ahead. Let's make this quite small because these are very close together. I'm going to say, let's say 0.05, and I'm going to distribute horizontally. And then I actually made it a little bit big. So let's go ahead with 0.04. And that's perfect. So 0.04, now we're just spaced perfectly even, and we're going from margin to margin. Looks good. Okay, so now we're just going to create some little boxes. This is super easy, right? Text. I just make it the width of the box, which makes it really easy. Let's go ahead and let's center this. It doesn't look like my text box is centered. I'm going to hit Command B to check my text box. It says align centered. Okay, so we're fine there. Let's see. We didn't create... Let's go back to vertical 1. Let's go ahead. We didn't create a weekday paragraph style. Let's create a paragraph style. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to hit the plus. I'm going to highlight this, hit the plus, and then I'm going to rename this. I'm going to name this weekly layout days. Okay, weekly layout days. And that way we don't have to remember what we did every single time. So now let's go back to vertical week. Let's go in here. Let's type in, what are we doing? The 4th. It doesn't matter which day because this is not true to the days. And we are going to make this our weekly layout days. And it adjusts it. And let me move this up a little bit, just kind of see where you're at. I think that's pretty good. You can make it a little bit bigger if you want to, because this should be the biggest day, but if this had 30 in front of it, it would be bigger. So that's fine. Let's leave it at that. Now that that's set, we can go ahead and just copy and paste these. You're just lining them up. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do that one more time. These are all spaced evenly, so that should be fine. Okay. And then you can go ahead and you can rename all your days. Now, we want to go ahead and copy 3 of these over here for the other days of the week. Shift, hold, drag, or shift, option, drag, shift, alt, drag. And now we have these days. Pretty simple once you get to here. The only thing left to do, because I think this is looking pretty good, the only thing I want to do is maybe adjust these lines a little bit, but I want the lines to come down to the bottom. So we're going to just adjust these lines. I want to bring in a little farther away from the edge here. And I'm going to want to bring this to the bottom. So the first thing, well, one, we already have some lines there, but the first thing I want to do is you got to drag this frame. Otherwise, anything you add to it, any lines, is not going to show. So let's go ahead and drag the frame down and see what we're working with. Okay, so what we can do here is simply hit tab. Once you click into the bottom, you just hit tab and it's going to add new sections. Maybe one more, which didn't fit in the frame, but that's okay. And then we can shift it up so the line matches. I just play around with it and do what looks good to you, but that looks good. So we have lines going all the way up. And that's it. That's it for our vertical section 2. Hopefully I didn't go too fast for you, but you can see the difference between the two. They almost look like completely different layouts, but they are both vertical because this is for vertical planning. So that's it for our vertical 2. The only thing left to do today is we are going to create one version of our doggy themed, and we are going to do that with this one because the other one's a little more on the simple side, not too much we could do there. So we're going to go ahead and we are just going to copy and paste this entire layout. So Command C, Control C. I'm going to come over to my doggy planner here and we are going to add a new section. So hit the plus sign and let's rename this vertical. Oops, vertical layout. Vertical is fine. Okay, and then we are going to simply edit, paste in place so it pastes it in perfectly. There we go. And now we are just going to add a few things, maybe change some colors. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. This is the color based on our other planner. So I'm going to change this to match a color in this planner. So again, I just want the top and bottom stroke selected. So let's get rid of these vertical lines. And I'm going to pick one of our colors from here, which we have this pink. So let's just go with this pink. Okay. Let's add a little PNG here. In the background, you know, that's something I like to do. It adds a little something without being overwhelming. Okay, I'm going to take my little cutie guy here and I'm going to add him to the background of this planner. We are going to right click on him. We are going to come down to arrange and we are going to send to back because we want him to be behind our calendar. And now, because it's hard to see the numbers, we want to come up here to our opacity and bring that down until we like how much you can see it versus how well you can see the numbers. The numbers are the most important thing. So I think that looks good. We have our numbers, we have our little guy. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do here, I wanted to add a box. Now, let's add a box here. I'm going to add like a little frame to help separate these a little bit more. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hold, because the ellipse tool was the last thing we used, to get to the rectangle tool. And I'm just going to create just a rectangle around here. I am going to fill this with our pink. Here's one other little tip here. Right now we have the stroke. If you look over here, the stroke is pink and we have no fill. If you want this just to be the opposite, let's say you added a color to the stroke accidentally, you meant to add it to the fill, you can just click this little arrow and it will switch the colors. Like it will switch what you have here if you made a mistake. All right, now, obviously we just created this, so this is on the front. Anytime you create a new object or text or etc., it's always going to be on the topmost layer. So we need to right click and send this to the back. So it's behind our text. It's making our text a little hard to see. So you could make your text white, you can make everything else here white if you wanted to. But I'm not going to do that because I want to keep in mind that this is meant to be written on. So you're better off just bringing the opacity or the tint down for the pink. So we're going to bring the tint down. We're just going to make it a little bit lighter so that you can see the text and the customer will also be able to see what they write in the box. But it just adds a little something and makes it cute. Then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to do the same thing here. So we don't need to do it all over again. So we just grab the box. Just make sure you click the corner. You don't want to click the table. You want to just click the box in the back. Sometimes I can get a little tricky. If you having trouble clicking it for some reason, you can also always come to layers and find your rectangle. It should be at the back because we just sent it all the way to the back. And then when you click on it, it will be highlighted. And then we're going to hold Option and Shift and drag it over to make a copy. We'll put it behind that one. This was the same size, but if it wasn't and you needed to readjust the box, you would just, drag the corners, readjust the box. Okay, there's that. Now what I wanted to do is I wanted to add some little PNGs down at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a bunch of these little PNGs. And I will be right back. There we go. I've added all my little guys to the bottom. They look super cute, all lined up. You can leave them like this if you want to, but it does take up a little bit of the boxes there. So the other option that you have is to go ahead and bring down the opacity on all these guys. You can select them all. You're going to have to deselect these back boxes because they're over front. Again, select them all. Deselect these boxes in the back. Now that you have all the little guys selected, you can bring the opacity down all at one time for all of them. If you want to do that as well, you can also send them to the back so that the lines are on top. Send to back so that the lines stay crisp and black. You can do that as well. So whatever your little preference is, that's all I got for you today for the dog themed. And that's it for today's video in general. So in the next episode, we're going to continue creating our weekly layouts. The next is going to be horizontal layout. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the next episode. And I'm going to see you then.